Okay.
Hello, inspired souls, and a big welcome to this episode. My name is Helen Pinkett. I'm your host, and here is Kyle, who's the guest. Hi, Kyle. How are you doing?
I'm really well. How are you?
I am good. Apart from the rain, I'm good. We've had a bit of sun this week, but apart from that, I'm very well. So I'm going to do a little introduction for you because I've got a very impressive intro for you here. So I'm just
Thank you
for
so
people
much.
who haven't met you before. So everyone, Kyle Gray is an author of 9 books, including the much loved Angel Prayers and Raise Your Vibration and the Wall Street Journal bestseller Angel Numbers. He also co-created 9 oracle card decks that have wowed his audience by bringing a modern and exciting approach to angels, ancestors, and ascended masters.
Yeah.
So you have done so much. And just to explain to all of our listeners, we've
Yeah.
actually been connected for a long time because I have done pretty much all of your courses.
Yeah, you're one of the OGs. I've known you since the beginning.
Yeah. So I did. So I was an angel team for 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
I was also a teacher mentor for your community for.
You were at the live and on the online.
Yes, yeah. So we've met in person as well. We met in Bristol. I saw you in Birmingham as well. Uh,
Yeah.
you are a huge part of my spiritual growth. I've got 1111 tattooed on me as well.
Oh, you do.
My
That's cool. Where's yours tattooed on you?
So mine is just here on my arm. I can't actually show it because I've
Oh,
got
you can't.
yeah,
Ooh.
but I've got 1111 there, and I've got the number 8 on my shoulder as well because eight's
Oh,
my
you do.
number. So yeah, into all of the angel numbers. I know. So anyway.
Wow.
I am going to let you introduce yourself, Kyle. Tell us who you are, what you do, and let's go right the way back to the beginning and share your journey. And I know that's a massive question.
I know it's kind of open-ended, isn't it? It's like how much do you really want to know, But just for anyone who's has not met me before, my life's work is to try and help as many people get spiritually connected as humanly possible. And I do that through a number of different means, but mainly I just want people to know that they have a guardian angel and that this divine being is available to you in every given moment. And you don't have to be gifted or special to connect with this being. It is your divine inheritance to experience them. And so for the last 22 years of my life, I've really just tried to find ways to help everyday people have a miraculous connection. And I say that as an everyday person as well, you know, self-confessed high school dropout, turn author, it's maybe a little bit different from the norm, but I genuinely feel like we are living in a very particular time that has the opportunity to help the human consciousness evolve. And I am trying to play my part in that. That's really what I would say.
Yeah, so absolutely bringing angels into the mainstream so people are more aware. But I think you said that 46% of people believe in angels as well. So there's the
Yeah, it's
really
higher than that. It's 69% of the world
right, yeah.
believe in angels. It's a really high number. Like when we were, because we were doing a lot of research for this new book. Like the main focus was to try and get like all the science and the facts and the information like down like the statistics and be like, hey, this isn't so woo-woo, because like you'll know as a spiritual practitioner, someone who's been doing this for a long time, like 20 years ago to now, there's been a radical shift in spirituality and the interest in it. Like when we first started doing this stuff, people were like, "You guys are nuts."
Yeah.
And now you can just like walk into like Topshop and buy a crystal necklace. It's just such a shift in times.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really interesting to see how people bringing more spirituality into their work, and people are talking about manifesting, and everyone just
It's
seems to
just the
embrace
norm.
this stuff now.
Yeah, so yeah, but to go back to your original question, my whole journey started very, very young. I had my first spiritual experience when I was maybe uh, 4 years old. It was after having this virus called Guillain-Barré syndrome, which is a virus that attacks the nervous system. And it came after having the flu. And it was one morning, I remember just waking up and my parents were like, "Come on, Kyle, get up," you know. And I just could not get up out of my bed. My legs were not working.
Mm.
And I was rushed into hospital. And then after a few weeks, they discovered that I had Guillain-Barré syndrome. And it was during having Guillain-Barré syndrome that I started to experiment with feeling. So like if I could, like when you're a kid, you're super inquisitive and you want to run into the next room and see what the parents are talking about, or you just want to be involved in everything that's going on. I couldn't do that. And so I used to imagine myself going to the next room and listening to the conversation. I used to try and like heighten my ears in the sense where I like try to listen for the faintest of whispers. And it was during that time I also developed this crazy scent thing where I can smell like what it is you're cooking, or even if you were cooking in your house and you came to my house, I can smell it off of you. Like, so my senses heightened.
Yeah.
And it was around that time that my grandmother, who was also unwell, also in a wheelchair, was moved into our family home. And we developed this great rapport and relationship between us. And I had this great love for my nana. And it was after she was moved to hospital. I woke up one night and she was sitting at the bottom of my bed. I remember it so distinctly because she seemed happy and she was not in a wheelchair, and she put me on my belly and tickled my back, which was my favorite thing, just like like that,
Yeah.
up and down. And I fell asleep feeling so loved. And it was the next morning that I asked my mum, "Where's Nana?" And she said, "Oh, Nana's not here." And I was like, "Well, she came home last night. She was in my room." And my mum said, "Oh, you must have been dreaming."
Mm.
And it was later on that day, it was revealed to me that my grandmother had actually passed away.
Mm.
And so from that very early age of like four-ish, I've had this deep questioning in my heart and mind, like, what happens to us when we die? Like that was the main question. Like, and if my grandmother went to heaven, why did I see her? That was the question I asked my mum all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that just like followed me my entire life. And it was a question that could not be answered by Sunday school leaders. It couldn't be answered by, I was really involved in a lot of Christian organizations growing up, like the Boys Brigade and Sunday school and the Alpha Course. And there was nothing anyone could answer in those spaces. And it was when Buffy the Vampire Slayer came on TV, you know, by the way, it's being rebooted. I just heard that Sarah Michelle Gellar is coming back. Um, it was when Buffy came on TV that then I started to question the supernatural and looking into spiritual communication and crystals, and eventually it was a family friend who'd said to me, "Have you ever looked into angels? Have you ever been interested in angels?" And she was interested in Reiki and energy healing, and I
Mm.
said, "Oh, I feel a little bit opposed to that because I'm not drawn to Christianity. And I feel, I've always had a bit of a weird relationship with it. Like I love it, but I don't." And anyway, she said, "No, angels are more than that. And everyone has one. And I've got angel cards. So why don't you come upstairs and I'll let you pick one?"
Mm.
And I'll never forget the first card that I picked was synchronicity was the word on the card.
Yeah.
And it was that kind of like opened me up to this idea that there is something else out there that not only exists, but we can communicate with it. And it was through the cards that then my interest was heightened, and I just took the subject and went running with it.
You certainly did.
And I've still not stopped.
And he's still going.
Yeah. And that was 22 years, 23 years ago.
Yeah, that's
Just
incredible.
it's a long time,
Yeah.
and the same questions are still there. And every year I feel like I've developed a different feeling into it and opens up even more. But I've now reached the point where I genuinely know in my heart that when the physical body dies, something else happens
Mm,
and we can communicate with it. Like that's certain in me.
yeah, absolutely. There is more out there. 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've made it my life's work to help people see that that's not actually woo-woo. It's actually part of the human consciousness to commune with something else. Um, and I think we've actually removed it from ourselves. And
Mm.
never finally at that place, the age of Aquarius, where we're coming back to
Oh, yes. Yeah, it's all going on. It's absolutely
it. Yeah.
happening. So you had that experience with your nana.
Hmm.
What other big experience comes to mind with angels? What's the most prominent angel experience?
So after that Nana effect, there wasn't really any angels per se until down the line. There was lots of spiritual experiences and like seeing dead dogs and having these moments of people coming to my room at night and wanting me to pass on messages. And one of the kind of prominent ones that stick out to me is my grandmother came to me in a dream, and she was sitting out the back garden, and she was sitting at this long, got goosebumps thinking about this.
Mm.
She got this long like table, like you know the advert for olive oil you used to see on TV, and it was like all the Italians sitting out the
Oh,
back, and they're
yeah,
all,
with the
you know,
crappy, yeah.
yeah, like that. It was like all this Italian people are all sitting at this big long table. And my grandmother was with them all, and she invited me to sit down. And then people are feeding me all this like Italian food. And I'll never forget like feeling like it was so real. And then I told my mother about it, and it turns out that my grandmother actually used to go to Italy on the bus.
Wow.
And she would travel on the bus from the west coast of Scotland to Italy every year. And her next door neighbor growing up was an Italian family, and she used to have this like big dinner out the backyard with all the family.
Mm.
So that was really prominent. I was like, gosh, there's got to be something to this. And then when I started to develop the interest in angels, I learned that angels as beings cannot kind of intersect in our life unless we give them permission. And ever since that first experience in recovering from being paralyzed, I'd had these migraine headaches that lasted 11 years.
Mm.
And I read that angels could heal you. And my first prayer to the angels was, dear angels, if you're real,
Mm.
take away my headache. Like that was my prayer. And over the course of maybe about a week, my headache just subsided. And one morning I woke up and my mom's like, "You haven't taken your medicine," you know. And I said, "Oh, I don't have a headache." And my mom was like, "You don't have a headache? Like you've had this headache for 11 years." They thought it was nerve damage. And I was on these like tranquilizers,
Yeah, yeah,
which were probably making me sleepy to my spiritual senses as well.
of course, yes, yeah.
And they knocked me out at night. And like I fell asleep in my dinner a few times. Like
Wow.
like intense they were.
Mm,
And
yeah,
I just said, I don't have a headache. I was like, well, don't take your medicine then. And then I never took it again. And it was just like gone.
wow. That's
So,
incredible.
yeah, so that was like my big aha. I was like, okay, angels are out there. I've not seen them yet, but they're definitely out there, and I'm really interested in being able to talk to them more.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And then you made that into your life's work, which is, oh, it's absolutely amazing. So so if someone's listening to this and they're thinking or feeling like I would like to connect in with my angels, how would you, what tips, what would you recommend? What would you say to someone who's like, I don't know if I've got an angel, where are my angels? How do I connect in with them?
I think that as soon as you hear the idea that angels are real, you could be intrigued by it, and that seems exciting. I think the most off-putting part about any of this stuff is the idea that other people might consider you a little bit, you know, strange or And that does put a lot of people off. It stops a lot of people evolving on their spiritual pathway because they're concerned about how they're going to be received. So just like going back to what we've just spoken about, the statistics around angels are really interesting. Like it's 89% of people in the US believe in angels. In the UK, it's one in every third person that believes in angels, as a poll kind of shown by the Bible Society. And what they found was in the UK, particularly, for every 10th person who believes, one in every 10th believes that they've actually had a direct experience or a direct encounter. So every 10th person's basically said they've been touched by an angel or encountered them in some way. So keeping that in mind, it's actually not that woo-woo
Mm.
and out there to be connected as you might have first thought. So keeping that in mind, the greatest thing that will take you to the angels is just a willingness and an openness. You know,
Mhm.
like willing to have some sort of an experience or willing to be supported. Is the first step along the way. It's just like, hey, I'm willing to look into this. I'm willing for this to be something in my life. But the other thing I should just kind of like force up is like, I know people who've been meditating for 30 years and they've still not had an encounter. So I also don't want you to be put off if you're hearing this and you're like, I'd really like to experience that, but I'm not so sure I'm ready for like a full body golden apparition in my room at night, you know? So I should say that willingness is the first step, but also if you're hesitant because it might feel a little bit overwhelming, chances are you're not going to see something big and wonderful and woo-woo. It's probably going to be something really subtle, like seeing a 11:11 on the clock or finding a feather or having a feeling like your prayer's been answered. You know, like that's usually like the beginner steps. It's kind of like the angels come in and they give us stabilizers, you know, on the back of our bike to kind of help us get started on the journey. And when we're ready, those stabilizers will be taken away and we can go a little bit further. So the first is a willingness and actually just having an internal conversation like, I'm willing for this to be real, or I'm open to experiencing this
Mm.
is the first thing, and then the next thing is actually just like reaching out direct.
Mm.
You know, angels, if you're out there, thank you for reminding me of your presence. Like that's my favorite prayer. You know, thank you for reminding me of your presence. Um, and then being open to some sort of reminder,
Yeah, yeah,
which is exciting.
it absolutely is. It's asking for their help because the angels always sort me out a car parking space.
Yeah,
It's about car parking angels, right?
yeah. We were just talking about that the other day. It's like there comes a point where you want more than that, but sometimes it's good just to like start with the beginner stuff. Like, yeah, I'd like a parking space or a green light because I'm running late for this meeting.
Yeah.
I've got a really funny story actually. I remember years ago I had just done my Hay House meet for my first book
Mm.
back in 2011, and we were coming from the west of London to get to Heathrow in time, and or Gatwick, sorry. I was running so late and I was like running for the flight. And then I was like, Archangel Michael, thank you for delaying this flight because so that we can get on it today.
Yeah.
And then we got on the flight and it was all running on time. And then they went, ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately, we've encountered an error and we're going to have to station here for the next 2 hours. And I was like, I wasn't clear enough.
That's it. You need to be very clear with your instructions.
I remember I was like, I'm so sorry, ladies and gentlemen. I've just delayed the flight. This is so yeah. I also sorry, I was going to tell you another one. I was just thinking about it. One time I was going through, I used to get really scared going through America, you know, like because we're going there for conferences and it's kind of elusive, like, should I have a visa, should I not? But I'm only here for 2 days and all the things. And I remember I was going to Philadelphia for a conference, and Robert Holden was like, invite the angels to make you invisible. And I was like, okay, invisible it is. Archangel Michael, thank you for making me invisible today. I'm invisible. No one can see me. And then I get up to the passport thing. The guy's like, and why are you here? And I'm like, I'm just attending a conference. And he's like, okay, can you put your hand on the pad? And he's scanning it and he's like, it's weird. It's like your hand's invisible. It's just not picking it up. I'm like, no. So whether that actually happened because of my prayer or not, who knows? But
It happened.
yeah, if you're asking for something, sometimes it's quite nice just to be a little bit clearer than you first intended, you know. I would
Yeah.
like a bluebird or a green butterfly, something like that.
Yeah, that's it. It's good. It's a good way to start actually playing and practicing, isn't it? Asking for something specific and then just seeing how that shows up. Like say, like I want to see a blue butterfly,
Yeah,
and you never know. The angels show me a blue butterfly, and then looking out for places where you might not normally see one, like on a mug or on a sign or some kind of song that might talk about blue butterflies. I don't know. But it's a great way to start. But you could, like you say, being clear, asking for what you want, and you can ask for anything that you want. But let's
yeah,
on free will as well, because we have to ask our angels, don't we?
right.
They can't just swoop in and unless
So
it's an emergency.
yeah, there's emergencies, and then there's this other thing that I've really been investigating a lot, which is the law of divine compensation, I call it, where good deeds actually protect you when you need them most. So like whenever we like it's like when we're going around our life and we do good things for others, there's a lot of people out there, it's like, I just constantly give and no one's giving me back. That's not always is collected as a good deed because there's a resentment behind it. But when you just give without needing to seek in return, I believe it collects up like a energy bank in your aura.
Yeah.
And then when you need it most, that energy will create a way forward for you. Like the angels will help you in that regard. So I feel like good deeds actually help good people.
Yeah, absolutely. But like karma, so doing all the good things, and it's all building
Yes.
up and giving from a good place as well, not necessarily giving to get something back, or like you say, with resentment or anything else attached to it, just from a pure heart.
Yeah, I just always say like when you give, God gives to you. And like that's just I feel like that's the currency of the angels.
Yes,
I feel like that's how they operate.
yeah, absolutely. I love that. So let me ask you about the four pillars. So
Oh
you have
yeah.
four pillars in your work. So would you mind
Yeah.
sharing about those?
Yeah, so the four pillars are basically like the frequency of the angels, and this isn't like me channeling and receiving this as who we are. It's more through the years of learning about angels, and that's from personal experience, meeting people like yourself who've had their own personal experiences and telling me how they've felt and what they've went through, and also like my genuine interest is reading scripture and like looking into angels, not just in biblical work but just like in channelings, and I've found that there's a common thread amongst all angels, mentioned in all types of stories, is they all have these common traits amongst them. And
Mm.
I believe that if we can emulate the energy of the angels, that we actually attract them towards us. So not only can we call in angels to our life, our good deeds can attract them, and also the way we hold ourselves and the way we navigate our life can attract angels towards us as well. And
Mm.
so I put them down to these four pillars. So the first one is authenticity. Um, the biggest thing you'll hear about angels is they are truth speakers. And I've always said since the days I've done, psychic work and readings that angels, don't mince their words. They are very to the point. They tell you what you need to hear. And what you want to hear and what you need to hear are often two very different things, but they're always given with love. And I think that's what true authenticity is. It's about sharing how you really feel in a loving and honest way with regards to how that's going to affect someone else. So
Mm.
when we are authentically ourselves, when we actually just step into our truth, and that looks different for every single person, but I think all of us will never feel fully authentically ourselves unless we get something off our chest or share how we really need to feel with a loved one, or that authenticity. When we step into that, that's gonna attract angels towards us because they are attracted to truth.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that's good.
So, I always use my own story in my book. When I was writing, I wrote about my own story because I I always struggled with my sexuality in earlier days, and I kind of grew up in the generation where if someone was on TV like The X Factor, do you remember? They always used to tell them if they were gay not to come out. They would always say, "Don't come out. That's not going to be good for your marketing because you're like a handsome looking guy and you'll not sell as many records and all these different things." And
Mm.
so I was kind of that generation. And when I first joined the Sun newspaper when I was 20 years old, which is a baby in a newspaper, you know, I remember the editor pulled me into the office and he said, "Do you have any skeletons in your closet?" And I was like, "No, no, I don't have any skeletons in my closet." And he's like, "I need to know, because if you have anything that you're hiding from us, there will be people out there who will find it, and instead of you telling the world, they'll tell the world." And I remember like feeling so nervous. I'm like, "Well, I'm gay." But I'll tell you, even though that was a really hard and harsh experience,
Mm.
when I actually owned that, there was just like an ease in my life. There was just like everything else started to flow with much more ease. And I feel like that was my authentic truth. Like, your sexuality doesn't make who you are, but it is a part of who you are. And if you're hiding from a part of yourself, then the world can't fully see you. And I knew that I wanted to do this work.
Yeah, yeah.
So you know, and so that was like my story of authenticity. So when we step into our truest, most authentic version of ourselves, then angels are attracted to us and they can help us from that state.
Yeah, amazing. Absolutely.
So you've got authenticity, you've got devotion. Devotion is when you devote yourself to something with an unwavering faith, and that does not necessarily have to translate to falling on your knees and like or prostrating in front of an image of a deity. It's
Mm.
actually just about devoting yourself. It could be to your purpose. It could be to your life mission. It could be to your chapel. Like, I don't know about you, but in the west coast of Scotland, there's so many little grannies who live for the chapel.
Right. Yeah.
And I've actually always been obsessed, like, these little medals that they give out.
Yes. Yeah.
I love them. And I've met many of those grandmothers in my journey who just are so devoted to their faith.
Mm.
There are so many angels around them when I'm in their presence.
Yeah.
But it can also be someone who's devoted to a charity or to their career or even to their family. But
Yeah.
when you give without needing to receive, angels give to you. So that's the next pillar. So it's authenticity, devotion. The next one along is love.
Mm.
And it's about loving in a way similar to devotion, not looking for anything in return. This is like the story of the angels, is that when they give, they don't look to receive, they just give.
Yeah.
So love in this sense is about loving unconditionally. It can be loving yourself, loving another. Um,
Yeah.
it could be doing things with love. It can be love for your higher power. But when we love without conditions, really we stretch the heart open.
Yeah.
We allow it to really become its fully bloomed self.
Yeah.
And that attracts angels towards us. And there's many people out there that can just receive people for who they are.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I always think of, the people that do like work for people that are living on the streets or whatever. And
Mm.
I've seen it like outside Marks and Spencer's in Glasgow. You know, they have a food bank that's set up, and there's people there, and they're like touching people in the hand or pulling them in and under there. And there's so many people out there who just be even terrified to touch the hand
Yes.
of
Yeah.
one of these people for me because they're living on the streets or because they're an addict or whatever, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you see people that just touch without fear in their heart.
Just pure love, just openness. Yeah.
That's the kind of love we're speaking about here, you know. And that's what an angel's love is, you know.
Mm.
Um, like in the times that I've done sessions with people and they've done something really wrong or really bad, their angel has loved them anyway.
Yeah.
Because if that person could even just tune in to a fraction of how much their angel loved them, they wouldn't have made that decision, you know.
Mm.
So that's really the angels love us and they hold us in the highest of esteem because if we can see ourselves in that same way, then the choices that we make and the steps that we take will be centered in that love.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, yeah, different choices. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I
Yeah.
also am inspired by that. You know that story about it was a African American man who befriended the members of the KKK in the US. He was like a cop who befriended people in the KKK, and then he kind of like got them to see life from his perspective, and they reformed. Like that unafraid love.
Yeah. Yeah. Not afraid to step forward to give that love to anyone because everybody deserves to have love.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Amazing.
Yeah, so that's that one of the pillars. And then the final one, where am I? Service.
Yes.
Service. You
Yeah.
know, this is something that I have looked into recently because I even caught myself in this place. Like, you know, my mother was so poorly for the last 4 years, and I was her main carer. And when she was really in need, sometimes I was like so in service that I actually felt like I was so stretched and I couldn't give anymore, and I almost resented
Mm.
the level of service and care that I was having to give to her. And I
Yeah.
clocked it in myself and I was like, this isn't true service because if I'm giving and I'm resenting, then I'm not really giving here.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's what then made me bring in a team to be able to support my mum so I could love her harder.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
when I'm speaking about service today, I'm not talking about service where you're serving, where you're in the way where you've got nothing left to give. You're serving in a way where you're also being served.
Yes. Yeah. Not serving to the point where you're giving everything, but it's like, yeah,
Yeah,
to give, but support yourself.
right. Because I remember there was someone in Angel Team really triggered by that pillar of the angels, like, oh, I just don't like that service word. It feels subservient.
Mm.
And I was like, oh, I'm really glad you brought that up because the angels would ask you to give, but they wouldn't ask you to give of yourself.
Yeah.
And there's a real shift in dynamic there. But when we serve in a way where we're not looking to receive, when we share in a way where it's lighting us up, that's us in the pillar. That's us in the pillar of the angels. And that's who they are. They're like, oh my goodness, Helen's calling on me, so I am 100% going to cheerlead her today. You know, like that's the way they are.
Yeah. Yeah. Incredible. There are so many things that we can talk about angels, but I want to just talk about your book.
Oh yeah, I'm so
So,
excited about it.
yeah, let's just touch on your book. Angels Are With You Now. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so you know, I was actually invited to write this book, and because I had reached a point where like I've done 8 books, you know, I've
Eight.
done it all, like I've had enough, you know, and in Hay House we're like you're in a completely different place now, like you're quite far down the line, and a lot of what you used to teach is not necessarily, it's not that it's not relevant. You've heightened your awareness and you've thought a lot about this and you've changed a lot. And so that's what I wrote this book for. This book's to get to a mass market. It's to reach people who've maybe never considered angels before. And it's to open up the conversation about angels. So people like you might read and be like, I knew absolutely everything in that book. You know, like it might not feel new, But for people who've maybe never touched angels in their life, or have felt scared or unsure about it, this is really just a gentle introduction to the angels, but it's also my opportunity to undo a lot of the narrative that's been put on spiritual experiences. And
Mm.
you know, when I came into the angel world, there was a few main teachers out there, and they had kind of set the precedence of like what the angels were, who they looked
Mm.
like, and all these different things. And I had to fit that narrative.
Right.
You know, so when my first book came back, they're like, "Oh, this person says that, that person says that," and I hadn't gained the authority to be able to lean into it. And now
Yeah.
we're like 15 years down the line, and they're like, you can now speak with authority and from your experience, and you can rehash what you feel. And so that's what I've tried to do.
Yeah, amazing. Wow. It's
So I'm
incredible.
excited about it.
Yeah, it's very exciting. So
Fingers crossed for Sunday Times, like that's the goal.
yes, yes, fingers crossed. Well, let's ask the angels.
Yeah.
The book is out on the 18th of February. I'm
Yeah.
going to put all of your links and
Thank you
all of
so
your
much.
details in the show notes so that people can come and find you. Thank you so
Mm.
much for being an amazing guest. It's so nice to catch up with you, and thank you for all of the work that you've done. And yeah, it's been amazing having you on today. So thank you very much.
Appreciate you having me, Helen. Thank you so much.
Thank you, thank you. And thank you to all of our listeners as well.